Hello, this is Trevor with Vanultra, and this is episode 7 of the low profile SUV mounts. Now, in the previous episode, what we had done was test out these new low profile mounts. In this one, what we're doing is going to be reviewing some of those updates that we've been working on. So we've actually manufactured another set and have done some design changes. So what we're going to do in this video is dive into some of those design updates and show you what some of the new features that we have, and hopefully we can get out and start testing after this. We've made 3 changes to the slider assembly. The first change is the length. We increased the overall length of the slider assembly to be able to avoid issues with the front bolt catching on the crossbar. The second change we've done is the material. We used ABS plastic before. We've actually changed it out to rubber because as the vehicle was bouncing on rough terrain, we can hear the ABS tapping on the crossbar. So we want to try and remove that noise. The third change we've done is to design a bushing. Previously, we were stacking up nylon washers and spacers. We've actually designed a full-on bushing for this part now. We changed the bracket design. Instead of mounting to the side of the extrusion, we decided to mount to the top of the extrusion. Alternatively, this can be mounted to the bottom of the extrusion. Now, one of the things that we noticed was that we have to space the tent up in order to prevent the tent from contacting on the roof rack. So we actually open up a lot more compatibility by mounting to the top of the extrusion. There's a lot more roof racks out there that have only a top T-slot and don't necessarily have this side T-slot. So we're going to try out this new design and hopefully it's going to be a win. We also spent time figuring out the removable handle. Now, on the first iteration, we just had this tube, and the tube worked pretty well just to be able to slide over the handle of the clamp. And this works well in theory, but the problem we were having is that when the tent was sitting down here, there actually was not this much space. We couldn't actually install this with the rear bar in place. With the new design, we have this 2D profile of a handle, and these 2 cutouts actually attach to socket head cap screws that are on the toggle clamp. So this can slide right under here, nice and low profile, and clip into the 2 fasteners and be able to slide and operate it this way. Now, one thing that's also cool is that I can pop this on the last socket head fastener and be able to get that further angle, which I couldn't do with this tube. With the tube, as soon as I hit the shark fin, that's as far as I can go. One of the last new features of this iteration is a lock. We've actually implemented a plunger style lock with a key. And the way this works is that when the tent is installed and in place, the handle for the clamp, when it swings into the engaged position, it actually has a little cutout, and that cutout is going to interlock with this plunger. And when the plunger lock is engaged, it will actually lock this handle into that fixed position and no one will be able to steal your tent. So this is an example of a tent mounting rail. This is actually from an Intrepid Geo tent. Now the way this works, just like before, the tent's going to drop onto these brackets and then slide all the way forward. The front mount here doesn't have a clamp that holds it in place. The rear clamp is holding everything forward, but vertically, side to side, up and down, nothing can move. So all you have to do then is close the clamp in the back of the assembly like that and engage the lock. And now your tent's secured and locked in position. We just swapped out all of the new mounts and removed the old mounts. One thing you'll notice right away is that we actually have 6 sets of mounts now. We're actually mounting to 3 crossbars. And after doing testing, we learned that with a big heavy tent like this, a 200-pound tent, mounting to only 2 crossbars is not sufficient. So we actually set this extra set of mounts in here when we ditched all the rubber pads and bumpers. And what we are doing on the spacing for these crossbars is that we're trying to mount as far back, closest to the rear attachment to the roof. And then this center bar right here isn't actually in the center of the roof or the center of the tent, but we're trying to mount as close as we can to the attachments to the roof. So front bar all the way forward, rear bar all the way back, and then this bar is biased to the front near these mounting feet. Earlier, we mentioned that we changed up the bracket design and we went from mounting on the side of the extrusion to the top or alternatively on the bottom. Now, for testing purposes, we're going to try out both configurations. So here in the back, you can see where we mounted one on the top and this other one we mounted on below. Now, aesthetically, this one looks a little bit more appealing to me. However, I know that our tent needs to be spaced up a ½ inch, otherwise we get a lot of rattles and noises. So we're going to go ahead and use the thickness of the bracket to our advantage on this one. So mounting on the top is actually my preferred method for our configuration. We determined that we can simplify the overall design by reducing the rubber pad to a small rectangular piece and attaching it to the bracket. By doing this, each slider assembly is reduced from 2 bolts in a rubber pad to a single bushing with a bolt. This overall improves the design by simplifying it, reducing the part count, and making it a cleaner, simpler solution. It can be lowered in place, easily slid into the correct position, and then fully tightened as needed. This concludes our product development and prototyping phase. We are now into the next phase, which is production. So please stay tuned. You'll be able to see what the production parts look like. We've made some additional changes, but overall the design is very similar and very straightforward, and we are very happy with the results.